Human trafficking is a term we hear everywhere, in headlines, on social media, and whispered through our communities. But how much do we really understand about what it is, who it impacts, and how to respond? I'm Miko Anderson, and this is The Traffic Report, a podcast from Equitas. This season, we'll sit down with survivors, prosecutors, advocates, and allies, not only to uncover the impact of human trafficking, but to focus on what comes next, the strategies, reforms, and community-driven solutions survivors need from us. We'll look at where systems fall short, and we'll highlight the innovations that practitioners are building to make support safer, stronger, and sustainable. Together, we'll explore what it takes to create real and lasting change. When a trafficking case ends in court, most people assume the survivor's journey is over. For many, it's just beginning. The trauma continues long after prosecution. Barriers to housing, employment, and safety remain. Often, survivors struggle with self-exploitation patterns or ongoing threats from past traffickers. The end of the case doesn't automatically mean the end of support. Survivors need long-term, trauma-informed care that goes beyond the courtroom, coordinated services, partnerships between agencies, and continuous case management that can make life-changing differences. Today, we're exploring that question. How can the systems around survivors, legal, social, community-based, stay connected and supportive when the case is technically adjourned? What does real, sustained recovery look like when prosecution is only one part of the story? To help us unpack what life looks like for survivors after the case is closed and how long-term support can make a difference, I am joined by someone who has been on the front lines of family and community healing. Denise Wyatt is the executive director of the Family Healing Center in Fresno, California, where she oversees a team of 12 and has guided the center's evolution into a full child advocacy center serving the county. She brings a deep commitment to helping families navigate trauma and connect with lasting support. She's active in the Fresno Latino Rotary, the League of Mexican American Women, the Central Valley Latino Giving Circle, and sits on the board of Real Authentic Women Wellness. Her work focuses on building partnerships across community to ensure survivors and families have access to coordinated long-term care. Denise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today, Miko. It's really an honor to be here with you.
Before we dive into the solutions, I just want to help understand and help our listeners understand what is it that you do at the Family Healing Center and what kind of communities or populations do you serve?
I am the executive director at the Family Healing Center. I oversee the staff. We provide forensic interviews for children 12 and under who have been a victim of crime. The children that we serve here have been a victim of child sexual abuse, physical abuse, witness to domestic violence, witness to homicide. And again, the children we serve are 12 and under, mostly. We do serve children that are above 12 with special circumstances, being mental health issues, being developmentally delayed, a wide variety of circumstances. Witnesses to homicide, especially in domestic violence, because we don't think to interview the children that have seen or heard those types of incidents, because the victim in those cases are the parent or the adult, not so much the child, but they are actually the victim as well.
And I appreciate that because a lot of times the children can go unseen. in all of those crimes that you mentioned, and the way it intersects with human trafficking, because with human trafficking, there's so many other co-occurring crimes like domestic violence, sexual abuse, and so many other crimes. So thank you so much for the work that you do. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is if you could help us understand what life looks like for survivors, of crime, particularly human trafficking victims, but crime in general after court has ended.
It's different for each victim, depending on what justice looks for like for every family. For one family, justice could be the perpetrator going to jail. Justice could look like them just being away from them, a restraining order. Sometimes it's the perpetrator fled to another country and they now feel safe. Justice looks different for everybody. For a victim, it could mean they no longer have to live in it and it's done. For some of them, it's getting the mental health treatment and the healing, beginning to work through the trauma and how do I cope with it and how do I get through and learn how to manage all of the emotions and go through all of the trauma that I have experienced in my life. And others, it's burying it. For each one, it's different.
Right. And I think that's so important because I know on the criminal justice side, a lot of times we assume that after the case is ended, right, the case is adjourned and we have some kind of disposition to the case, that we've kind of closed the chapter for the survivor, the victim of the case. And a lot of times they do face different obstacles, and just like you said, that are individualized to each particular victim. So, with that being said, what do you see as a reality that they often face? Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed that maybe are common in some of the struggles that survivors might face after court has ended? And that could be with resources or so many different things.
So for one particular family that I've worked with, I've gone to court with over, a span of a few years. We've gone to court. It's been different. It's kind of like navigating through the system, like, okay, they're allotting this, they're offering this amount of time. Okay, this doesn't look like justice for you. Okay, we're going to continue to fight and move forward. Okay, now this looks like justice for us. Okay, what does this look like? Okay, now we finally went to trial. We did all of the things. Now it's over. We're at the end. We've set our trial date. He's finally incarcerated. He's finally in CDCR. We no longer have court dates. Mom has now entered a phase in her life where, after so many years, I don't know what to do with my life. My life has always consisted of a next court date. I don't know what's next. So how do we transition? And my recommendation is, okay, now we need to work with therapists on what do we do next and how do we move forward, because you no longer have this in your life anymore. You no longer have a next court date. You now have to learn how to transition onto the next phase of your life. You have freedom. You have new goals to reach because we no longer have court. Your chapter is closed. That it's a new season of life. We now have new goals to look forward to.
No, that's really insightful because I never really thought of how, stopping the court system, finishing that process, just the no longer having future court dates, what that could do to somebody who's impacted by crime or a survivor of human trafficking or any of these correlated crimes, and just the idea that now where do I stand? It's almost like getting into like being engaged in a fight, and then the fight is over and you're standing in the middle of, like, the rubble of everything that once was, and now your task was the need to rebuild. So I never really thought about that. So that's really insightful for me, because I never thought about the lack of court dates. Normally we see court dates as a problem, but that is a pattern and a familiarity that runs with that. So I can completely see how that could cause somebody to have a different reaction to that. Along that same line, though, when they stop, when that conflict of the fight is, quote unquote, the legal battle portion, when that has ended and they're standing there with, the situation, wherever it is, because everybody comes from different circumstances, so it might look different. But when you have to face things like maybe housing instability,
Hmm.
education issues, because children will have traumatic responses that may show up in behaviors at school and those kind of things that engage the system. Is there anything that you do to help them navigate that part, as far as how they can get those other things in order that rely on just different systems that they might come in contact with?
Yeah, it's definitely connecting them with other agencies. I think it's beneficial for me. I'm a well-rounded mom, I should say. I think that's the blessing in disguise for me. I do have two boys that are autistic, and I have to know my resources for my own boys, which gives me a well-rounded uh, role in resources to be able to offer, like, hey, I know that you have to be able to go to this. I know you can go to Central Valley Regional Center if you need to get your child assessed. I know that you can go to EPU if you have a child 5 and under to need these resources. I know, like, the school district will provide this, this, and this. They can't deny you this. I know that you can go here, here, and here. But we also just recently hired an advocate part-time to be able to look up resources and be able to provide those resources and work with families to help navigate where we're at. And I am helping guide her, because right now I was the advocate to help walk alongside these families and provide guidance with them and go to court with them and walk with them. I love doing that, though. I even though I'm the director, like, I love walking alongside families and being with them, because that's where my heart is. I love being with families and be able to sit with them, like, hey, we're going to be able to make it through. Because, like you said, as insightful as it is to be able to sit there with them and say, we need to make sure that you're okay, because this season of your life is over. Like, this hard part is over. There's a new season ahead, and it's going to be even better. So in spite of the challenges that we had before, and you have a new season ahead, like the family that I was working with in court, like, they were blessed to be able to move into a new house. So the entire time they were going to court and going through all that ugliness and everything, they lived in an apartment. And now they have a 4-bedroom home that they all live in. The whole family has been blessed with the opportunity to live in a home. And I'm like, this is a new start for your whole family, to leave all of that behind, that every bad memory that was there, to live and start new memories in a new home where all of you can be and start fresh and create
No.
new.
Right. Now that is ideal. And when I think about some of the families that I worked with, um, what you described was the hope, right? To have a really
Mhm.
nice, ideal ending to where they can feel empowered and really be optimistic about their future. A lot of times, and particularly with human trafficking, but I know with other forms of abuse and exploitation, a victim may be victimized more than once. And I'm
Mhm.
not sure how often you see victims and survivors come back with different new, victimizations, and how you're able, if you do see that, how are you able to like help them walk through that to where in that moment the future might not be so bright, but because you have a different vantage point and know that even with that they can still, have successes and
Okay.
be productive and everything that they want. How do you convey that to someone who has maybe experienced multiple
I
victimizations?
really wish we could have better outcomes. We see them at such a young age. Because we see them at 12 and under when we're providing that forensic interview. We see them where the parent is bringing them in at such a young age. And we provide our services at no cost for the parent to bring their child in. The hard part is we're relying on parents to
Mhm.
bring their children to receive services. 50% of kids that are child sexual abuse will be sexually abused again. That's a high statistic. We see over 300 kids a year. So 150 of those kids are going to be sexually abused again at some point in their life. Whether that's as an adult or as a child, teenager, 50% of those kids will be abused again. I do see some of our kids, because I do work with the human trafficking team in DSS. Some of those kids I do see again in the human trafficking realm. And it does break my heart because we have seen them here. How can we prevent that? I really wish we had more prevention at the child advocacy level.
Right.
Because if we had more prevention at our level, if we had more help at our level, we would be able to do more work to help reduce that 50% number.
In your experience, do you think that might be one of the biggest gaps post
That is definitely a big
prosecution? Is
gap.
just how to prevent and protect them moving forward, and that would be, you would suggest then, through education and outreach and different preventative measures?
Yeah, if we could help them at the child advocacy level, then we could help reduce the number in the human trafficking level.
At the Family Healing Center, what does your coordinated long-term support plan, what does it look like? Do you only deal with the incident at hand, or when do you end services? Is it based on age? Is it, do you do a handoff to a different agency, or how does that work?
For our mental health piece, we do not end services.
Oh, wow.
We've been
Okay.
seeing kids here, some of them since we opened, because we've had a clinician here for just about that long. And some of them for as long as the clinician that we've had, when the clinician started to the ones that are still here. We're currently working with Fresno Pacific University to create an MOU to bring on some of their clinician to partner. Now, what that will look like, I'm not quite sure, but we're trying to get more clinicians because we want to see more kids. And we would really like to get more funding for ourselves so that we don't have to cap services, because that's our biggest thing. If we had the funding ourselves, we would see the kids and not cap services.
Looking outside of like the normal way you do things and inviting Fresno Pacific University students, there would be the students to would have an opportunity to also be clinicians then for your
Mhm.
program to help you take on even more
They would be
minors.
coming in and they would do their own stuff. They would be they would be seeing clients, but they would not be so kind of, they would be doing their own. I would not be doing billing. They would be doing their own. If I were to hire on clinicians and pay for them myself, if I had the funding to pay for clinicians, then I would not be capping off. I would be able to pay the clinicians, but I don't have the funding to pay clinicians. We're on a very tight budget. And that's why we have to cap our services right now.
And when you cap them, what does that mean?
Like, we're currently not taking any clients. We're having to refer out.
Okay. And referring out, and I know for a fact that Family Healing Center in the community is a very well-respected institution. So when you refer out, I'm sure you vet the agencies you
Yes.
refer out to?
I'm referring to Fresno Pacific right now.
Okay. Okay. Now I
Yeah.
understand. Okay. Okay. Then
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes,
Okay.
and I do vet out because I do not want them to be on a wait list. I don't want them to be having issues with getting in anywhere because I want them to be seen immediately. When I was taking clients, I was taking them within a week. I wanted them to be seen right away, and I wanted them to be treated well. I didn't want any complaints. When I called or if I was looking at reviews online, Google, and I seen a bad review and I seen multiple, I was like, don't refer there anymore.
Okay.
Then I'm like, we're not referring there
Right.
because then that leaves a bad reputation for me.
Right.
And it took a long time for me to be well respected in the community. I work with law enforcement, the DA's office, and they refer to me, and I take that very seriously. And the clients that we serve mean a lot to me. It's very important that they are well taken care of, especially after what they've gone through.
And I think that brings up, though, a very um, important point because a lot of times when we have these talks, we talk about like ideally what we would like to happen. And then, like, in terms that in a lot of communities, it's just not reasonable to expect. Like, the truth is, for funding reasons, you have limitations. But
Mhm.
also, the truth is because you understand how important the care is, you make sure that you found a way to make sure that that person, that survivor, still gets that consistency of service. So one of the things that I like to do, especially when I'm training like law enforcement officers and prosecutors, is to remember like ideally this might how we want it to be on paper, but when we don't have every single resource that we would like, what can we do in that situation? And I think that is just an excellent example of making sure that the person is still served, even though the systems might still need some work as far as funding or bandwidth and that capability. And we have a question from our listening community. What advice do you have for smaller community based organizations that want to help survivors long term but don't have the resources or formal partnerships?
We currently, in order to help work off of a California Office of Emergency grant, so we look at grant opportunities to provide the mental health piece. So looking at grant opportunities every chance we get. We're always looking at grant opportunities to pay for our mental health piece because that is always first and foremost what we're trying to do. Whether it's a Walmart grant, whether whatever grant opportunities we can find, we're trying to find to help pay for it. We fundraise.
Mm,
We have an annual fundraiser that we do. Everything that we get from our fundraiser goes to our mental health piece in our center because that is the most important piece for us.
that's awesome. And one of the things too that I wanted to address in this question is that it mentioned formal partnerships, that a lot of times you don't need the formal partnership in order to share resources. So networking and outreach opportunities can be really key to develop the relationship. You don't necessarily always need that formal partnership. Like you don't always need the MOU. Now I know with mental health services and such sensitive information and making sure that that that's followed through correctly, that would probably be best practice to have the
Yes.
formal partnership. But
Yes.
in every instance, you don't necessarily need that. So before you leave, Denise, we would like to close this episode with asking you three rapid fire questions. So, so I want you to get ready for three rapid fire questions. Okay. So, what have you learned from a survivor that changed how you work?
How resilient they are.
Mm.
They are very resilient.
What is one resource or tool that you recommend to everyone that they could use in the field?
Box breathing,
What is that?
taking your breaths, breathing in and out. 4 deep breaths. Count to 4, breathe in, breathe out. It's box breathing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. And that's to relax you
Mm-hmm.
and help
Sometimes you
center
just
you?
need to, yeah, especially when you're high anxiety. I've actually done that with a client because she was like a little much. And I'm like, just breathe in because
Okay.
she loses her temper sometimes. And I'm like, breathe.
Oh, we do that with my granddaughter. We teach she knows how to breathe. When she's getting upset, we go breathe, and she'll do it, but we haven't integrated the
Yeah.
box, so that's good. Okay. And then the last one. What is one sign of progress that you are seeing right now?
I think for me, it's actually taking time for myself.
Mm,
I used to be a serious workaholic, and I've been in this field going on 12 years. And I think taking time for myself is progress.
that's really good because that's often overlooked that you have
Hmm.
to, in order to really be present for survivors in a way that's sustainable and lasting, you have
Yes.
to actually be capable of doing it. So you have
Hmm.
to kind of prioritize your own well-being and health. So thank you for that. That one's really good. Denise, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise and insight and giving really creative solutions to real problems when it comes to resources being limited and making sure that the priority is that the survivor receives long-term and coordinated support.
Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, remember this: closing a case in court isn't the end of a survivor's journey. Every step we take to provide ongoing care, connect services, and build partnership help create a path toward healing and stability. We know change isn't always immediate, but every effort we take matters because together we can ensure that survivors are seen, supported, and empowered to rebuild their lives. For more information about Equitas, go to equitasresource.org. That's AEQUITAS resource.org. Or follow us on Equitas_resource on Instagram. The series is executive produced by Jennifer Long, Miko Anderson, Equitas, and Robin Hopkins. Our production coordinator is Eleni Angeles, and the series is sound designed and edited by Brian J. Lighton.